Hello, and welcome to the Flourishing Conversations podcast. I'm so excited to be with y'all today. We are the Flourishing Conversation podcast, where we come to have amazing conversations and learn so many wonderful things in the space of home education and school choice. Today, we will have with us Miss Tiffany Blassingame. And I'm on a side note with all the things about Tiffany we're going to say. I just have to say, first of all, I just like Tiffany as a person. I just like Tiffany as a person. We did a road trip to another homeschool conference in Birmingham, Alabama, and we were laughing and kikiing the whole ride to the point she was like, "Girl, we should have recorded this as a podcast." I said, "I know, right?" that was our first unofficial podcast, but everything there was not safe for social media. But so Tiffany Blassingame is the founder and head of school at the Ferguson School in Decatur, Georgia. Throughout her work as an educator, she has developed curriculum and programming, providing instructional coaching, professional development for school principals and teachers. She has served as an academic primary grade teacher. She is also not just an academic dean, but she is an educational activist who teaches in the primary grades. Tiffany supports diversity, inclusion, equity programs in education, and she has presented on many national stages, including the VELA Education Conference and at South by Southwest. Go ahead, girl. She has an amazing son who she's homeschooled into college, and Josh is what school is he at now?
He's at Western Carolina in North Carolina.
Western Carolina. So she's a proud homeschooling, survived it all mama, like so many of us are. And so we are excited to have Tiffany here as our expert actually on microschooling. One thing I can also say about Tiffany, she is also a community connector. Like, she really spends time putting other school founders in touch with the resources they need. Here at the Georgia Black Home Educators, we actually have a partnership with CompuDoc. We're giving away laptops at our conference, and we were introduced to them via Tiffany. So we credit her with that, and we are so grateful to have her here. Tiffany, thank you for being here. Can you please just tell us what brought you to this space? Of going from being a just passionate, involved teacher to transitioning to being a school founder of the Ferguson School.
Thanks, Nicole, for having me. I am super excited about Flourishing Conversations, first of all. Like, I'm so happy to see it flourish and come to life, because I know that this has been a project of yours that you've been visioning. So excited to see this happen. So I started, as you said, as a traditional educator in a traditional classroom. I taught primary grades in both South Carolina and then in public schools in Atlanta. I am a public school advocate as well. So I'm just a school advocate, period, finding the right place for your child. And for some, that is public school. However, I was in the public school for a little over a decade. And my last year in public school, I had 42 kindergartners in my classroom. Many people want to know, how was that possible? It's a long story, but no, it wasn't right. And it was a mess. And you mentioned my son. So I had a son that was at school with me. He was in the second grade, and I was not a good mom, or the best mom that I could be, at the same time of trying to work with 42 kindergartners every day. And I decided to do something different and to choose myself and my family, which led me into private school. And so I went into a traditional private school. It was a new private school in the community. And I began teaching primary grades there. And then later, I went on into school administration there, from academic dean to principal, and then later as assistant head of school. And after the pandemic, I began to see like lots of historically marginalized communities. So, um, Black and brown kids, language learners, um, neurodiverse kiddos trying to get into a small school setting so that their kids could catch up from the pandemic. And, we turned a lot of families away because just the cost of private school, even with financial aid assistance, was a lot. And so, long story short, I founded the Ferguson School to really provide an affordable private program for people who would not normally be able to have access to this quality education. And knowing what I went through with my son, as you mentioned, has gone through homeschooling. He's also been to public school, private school, charter, online, you name it, because we were always searching for the right space for him. So that's how I got to founding the Ferguson School. I am a fourth generation educator. So my mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and myself have all been educators, and that's my maternal line, which is why we named the school the Ferguson School. Sorry.
No, that's really cool. I think the craziest thing you said 40, how many kindergartners?
42 kindergartners in one classroom.
Wow. I
In
love
Atlanta.
babies, but it's 42 is like a lot to deal
It's a
with
lot.
all the little 5 to 6-year-old personalities.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
yeah, I can imagine that being a lot. One of the things that I like about the Ferguson School, and I actually had the opportunity to tour the Ferguson School and the location, is that this space that I've been in it's a hub. It is an educational hub because there are several other micro schools there. You know what? Before we move any further, I would like for you to give our audience a definition of a micro school, because I think many people are not recognizing that in this space we have, of course, homeschooling, which I always say we the hippies on this train, on this school choice train. But you have you have home education, of course, here in Georgia. That means you have to sign a declaration of intent in that way. But there's a transition space between private school and homeschooling that is a neat space for parents, where the homeschooling on board of doing everything yourself as the primary, but still you want to maintain the control of the micro school. Can you give our audience more of a definition of what you feel like your micro school community provides?
Sure. So there's actually, in between that space you described of traditional school, whether that's public or private, and homeschooling, there are 3 different non-traditional school environments or forms or types or whatever you want to call it. So there's micro schools, there's learning pods, and there's hybrid schools. And it gets a little convoluted, but micro schools are small learning spaces that they have multi-age classrooms. So kids are, it's not just like a first grade class, a second grade class, a third class. There's multi ages in a classroom. For us, that's K through 2 in a class and 3rd through 5th grade in a class. It could look different with different grades. All that doesn't matter. And they provide more personalized learning, and it's usually with a trained educator. So that's your primary definition of a micro school. And most micro schools could be as small as 5 kids, as much as 50 kids, maybe even 100 if it's a K through 12 specialized program. But a learning pod is a small group of kids, so probably anywhere between 3 to 10 kids, that where a group of parents have decided we're going to group together and get a teacher, or either teach our kids on our own and have school together in this little pod. And the parents pay the educator. They are usually, in Georgia, they're usually declared homeschoolers, and they're paying the educator as the homeschool tutor. And then there are hybrid schools where they are declared homeschoolers, and kids spend part of their week at home and part of their week at school, and the school is usually run by a trained educator. So that could be like a 3-day-a-week school, and then 2 days they're at home. For us at Ferguson, we actually run both programs, the Microschool private full-time program and the hybrid homeschool program. So our full-time kids come 5 days a week. They have their teacher. We report their attendance to the state. We give progress reports to those groups of kids. The hybrid school students come up to 3 days a week, and they are declared homeschoolers. Their parents choose which 3 days a week that they send them to school, and the other 2 days they stay home with their family. So it's a more flexible program. So that kind of defines it, particularly in Georgia. It could look different in other states, but based on Georgia's definitions, that's the hybrid school, the microschool, and the learning pod options.
Yes, those options is so interesting in the school choice space. I know a lot of us, we've tried all three. Especially if you have multiple children. Like I have 4 kids, and we have done, I think I've done every type of school except for private and Montessori. Those are the only 2 that I have not done here. So one of the things I would like to also bring, there's another model, and this is the model that my kids actually go to, and that's the CAB Christian Home Educators, is that there's also the homeschool cooperative model. Mm-hmm. Now, the homeschool cooperative model is different because they may not necessarily use, they may use a outside teacher, but for the most part, they at least have 80% of the classes are taught by parents. So parents coming in community to be parents as educators, and usually for the CAB Christian Home Educators, they spend the time to help parents to get up to speed, to be in that space. And parents do the things that are best for them in that space to be an educator, because we all know it can be a hard lift, and this is just community working. That's why it's cooperative. They're working together in that way. One of the interesting things, like I was saying, about the Ferguson School is that they are located in Decatur Baptist Church. And so in that building, like I said, it is a microschool, homeschool, cooperative, hybrid school hub. How many of these models are inside your building?
Yes, so we're inside of First Baptist Church Decatur in downtown Decatur. Mm-hmm. And there are 6 models in the building, plus some aftercare. So there's Ferguson School, we're the Christian Elementary Microschool there. There's the NIA School. It's a learning pod for students on the spectrum, mainly level 3, level 4 nonverbal autistic students. There's a learning pod, Brave Place Learning Space, which is ages 3 to 6 Montessori program. There's Lighthouse Atlanta Academy. They are middle and high school microschool. And the church has its own preschool there. And then Lead Homeschool Co-op is also there, or Lead Homeschool, yeah. And then the church has an aftercare program that picks up the city schools of Decatur kids, as well as takes any of our kids for after school programming. And then they also do the summer camp. So it's a lot of education going on around there. We share spaces, we share resources, we share the gym, the playground, the baseball slash kickball field. We go on field trips together. Um, yeah, we have the families that we serve, but we also open up social opportunities for kids by collaborating with the other school models in the building.
Yeah, because I know y'all were talking to the Gap Christian Home Educators at one time about possibly having a kickball. There's a little bit of a kickball tournament they do, and I've seen it, and I'm like, I don't know if these weak ankle homeschoolers over here are ready for for some of that for some of that play. I was like, whoa, but they are, it's a beautiful thing when you can pull to community together to do like great and amazing things, because you've attended our field day, because we do a field day and everything. I am so struck by how this movement of teachers, and let's talk about Metro Atlanta specifically, African American teachers, are making the move from public school, charter school, private school. And this is not to demonize any form of school. It's to say that I think it's also about work-life balance and wanting to see a dream where you have a specific audience you want to serve come to fruition. And so I've met many of you, and so many of you are driven more by, I have a passion to reach this particular child that is struggling. And then everything, the heart and the passion for it is not about, I left that because I hate that. It's so much about, I know I can do so much more in this direction. So I am struck by how we're in this movement of these Black teachers, African-American teachers moving into their own schools and creating their own community schools. And it's very reminiscent of the Rosenwald School project. And many of you in history, there's Julius Rosenwald. He was one of the founders of Sears and Roebuck and Company. And so he was friends with Booker T. Washington. And I think this was about, it's my homeschool brain. I think it was like 1920-ish, somewhere in there. And they were he was getting together with Booker T. Washington. And they were saying that it would be great if we had more community schools that were serving rural or Black communities. And so during that time frame, they opened over 5,000 schools through a school project. And there were some stipulations with the Rosenwald School Fund where all the community had to come together. The community had to bring a certain amount of financial support, had to donate the land, had to have the building materials. And many of these schools are still around today. Some of them are actually in ruins, but these communities literally built these schools brick by brick, piece of lumber by piece of lumber from the ground up. And so what we're watching here today with so many of our educational entrepreneurs is that they are literally sourcing community for what they need and then building something amazing brick by brick. Can you speak more about how you are feeling in this space where you are literally seeing a school choice shift into something that is innovative and beautiful, and how that passion for what you want to provide to the community is coming forth now?
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you brought up the history of schooling for Black and brown people. And one of the co-founders of Black Microschools ATL, April Jackson, did a timeline for us around schools that served primarily Black students from enslavement through the microschool movement. And so if we go all the way back and talk about clandestine schools, which were secret schools for enslaved Africans in the U.S., when and where education was illegal, like the pit schools, where they had schools underground. They would go down to learn. That was also a place where they would go and hide if they were trying to escape, but they would learn down there, right? Then it moved into the Rosenwald schools that you discussed, where the community raised money locally to match the grant, the Rosenwald grants. And these were community built schools for Black children in the segregated South. Moving on, we got to the Mississippi Freedom Schools, right? The 1964 Freedom Summer Campaign, created by SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. There were more than 40 freedom schools where they had a curriculum that emphasized Black history and the political participation and some of the traditional subjects. Moving forward, we get to the 1960s with the Black Panther Liberation Schools, where the curriculum emphasized Black history, culture, critical thinking, political education. It was all community driven. First established in Oakland, California in '69, and where we get our free breakfast program from in our public schools. Then we start seeing Black independent schools emerge. There was a Council of Independent Black Institutions. You can see a documentary on Hulu called Sacred Soil about Piney Wood School, which is our longest standing Black independent boarding school. That led to charter schools, which were primarily formed by founders and leaders trying to reach urban students through public education. Then we have this reemerging of the microschools. And when I say reemerging, it's because if you look back at the Pitt schools and the Rosenwald schools and the Freedom schools, they fit that model, that definition of small school settings, multi-age classrooms. And they were teaching kids what they needed to know. They were filling in the gaps and giving personalized learning. So the same thing that we saw then back in the 1900s and prior to, we're seeing that again in the microschool movement. And you talked about how Black founders or even just education entrepreneurs at this time are looking at where their passion lies. So when you think about microschools, they all have different niches, right? We are a progressive Christian microschool, meaning that we focus on Jesus as a role model and a leader for social justice and social change. We're culturally inclusive. We look at, when I say that our education, our curriculum is culturally inclusive, we take a look at the Georgia standards and we look at what's missing and we look at what's culturally relevant to the kids who we're teaching. There are other religious schools like Ladies of Favor in Morrow, and Tri-Cities Christians in East Point. And then you have more academic schools like PassPod in Hateville. You have virtual schools like Tutor Tots Online. You have the schools for the neurodiverse students, such as the NIA school that I mentioned, or Choice Prep in Lilburn, or Tread in Stone Mountain. So you have all these different education entrepreneurs who may have a background in special education, who may have a background in virtual schooling, who may have a really strong teaching philosophy around academic achievement and moving forward. And so we've taken our passions and we've identified the families and the students that could best benefit from this model of teaching, and that's who we target and support. And so there's room for all of us to support families and students in the ways that we know best how to do.
And I like how you said that there is space for all. I think right now we're in the midst of a political climate that is saying that public school is should be taken off the menu, which is so crazy to me, because at the end of the day, all of these models are blessings and gifts, blessing or a gift to some family. Mm-hmm. May not be for my family, but it's a blessing and gift to some family, because I do recognize that in the space of truly being able to homeschool, do the microschooling thing, there is an element there of economic privilege. There is and definitely an element of racial of just quality logistical privilege, because let's be honest, everybody doesn't have a quality school located next to where they are, and we are in Metro Atlanta. Let's be honest, this is a place where if you thinking about finding it, everything from a boarding school to a neurodivergent preschool, this is Metro Atlanta, and you can find it in some type of way. And so I do think that the conversation of school choice sometimes gets hijacked, and our people are not, we're seen as, all school choice people are seen as one monolith. We just were like pushing in one direction, and especially homeschools. I'm be honest, I'm a Christian traditional homeschooler, classical education homeschooler. And so there is a message among classical education homeschoolers that we are so anti-public school and shut down the school board. And I'm like, that's not everyone. And that's not everyone's story in that way. And so I'm always conscious to want to speak to the fact that some form of school choice is a blessing to some parent and exactly what they need. We need to figure out a way to have all of the spaces there. And plus, I'm pro public school teacher because of the fact that one of the beautiful things that I have always said is that historically in the space of credentialing, when it comes to Black women, the first two careers we could get credentialing in was as a nurse and a teacher.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you know, from the moment we were able to come off the plantation and have a semblance of freedom, some woman sat down and said, "Hey, y'all, we're about to have school. So here's the table." You know, just like home. We became our own home place, as Professor Hooks would say. We made our own revelation. The seat is at the table, and we were opening those books for our children. I also wanted to know, like, in this space where you have gotten the opportunity to meet so many amazing education entrepreneurs, and I have too, because it's not just Black and brown folks who are making new schools. We have people in the Appalachians who are making schools that are forest schools. We have indigenous people who are making language schools to preserve their language. We even have down in Florida, I think we even have a surf and skate school that surf and skate with science. So in this space where you are being of support, what are some of the ways in which you are coming along to support the aspiring educational entrepreneur?
So, you know, I pride myself on like being resourceful, right? I love to share some resources. You have been in that resource room, Nicole, getting resources, okay? But and also like collecting resources digitally to share with others. And there are a lot of like how to start your micro school kind of programs out there. And I'm glad people are doing that work, because for people who want to start their own school or to even consider what that might look like, having that support along the way that some of us didn't have, we just kind of fell into it and stumbled and kept going, it's going to really help to continue the movement. My role in continuing the movement is to actually support micro school teachers. And this is beyond or it's not the same as how to start your micro school. It's more about when you are hiring people to come on board, or you yourself are looking at being the teacher in the classroom. How do I shift from the traditional model of I have all fourth graders in a classroom and I'm going to just differentiate and serve them, versus, oh my goodness, I have second through fifth grade in a classroom. How do I make sure each one of them are getting what they need? They're being challenged, plus I'm filling in the gaps, plus I'm making sure that it's interesting and engaging and all of those things. That's the support that I provide to the space. Just primarily because of my background in teacher professional learning and managing teachers and hiring teachers. I am more of a coach in that way. And so I started the Microschool Educator Academy for teachers who may just been hired in as a microschool teacher or guide, or educators, they're actual microschool founders, and they're like, I'm ready to hire, but I don't have time to teach and train my teachers. So how do I make sure that they get the most important information? Give me the concise checklist of what needs to happen, how it needs to happen, so that I can follow that during the next school year and keep my teachers trained and moving forward. And to be honest, a lot of times, because of how affordable we are to families, we don't always get the credentialed certified teacher who can go and make $60,000 at the neighboring county system public school. And so while they're great teachers, they're usually degreed, we often hire teachers who are either retired, and so they are looking to work more, or they may be new to the industry of teaching. And so it's really important that we give them the support that they need, because it's not easy to do this work. Even though you may only have 6 kids in the class, 10 kids in the class, they're all on these different levels. They all have different interests. You're creating and building relationships with them. And so my support is in helping that teacher to stay encouraged, to set healthy boundaries, to challenge kids and students, to become a partner with their microschool founder. Like, there's so much that goes into the business of microschooling, that also as a teacher in a microschool, you're part of customer service. You're part of the communication with the parents. Like, this is more like teacher-led environments versus top down, tell you what to do kind of learning spaces. And so I feel like it's just really important to do that work, to train and educate and lead and coach teachers in this microschool space.
And so that is amazing that you are actually being a leader in this space, to see that we have people who want to do this, but there are many programs out there that onboard you into how do you create the educator space, financially, administratively, and everything. But that day-to-day actually a molding of little minds and holding little hearts in your hand to get them in that direction. Because when you were talking about that, many of the times it's K through second, or maybe third through fifth. That is a one room schoolhouse model. And so you do have to wear many hats to be able to do differentiated instruction for all those children in that way. And we do that here. Of course, you do that with homeschooling, because if you're a mama and you got people from high school to kindergarten, everybody's going to get a little bit of everything. And I can attest to the fact that I literally have an 8th grader who took her first dual enrollment class last year, because she has been sitting here watching 3 other siblings go over the same materials over and over again. And so by the time it got to her turn to be, ready for 8th, 9th grade, she was like, yeah, I already know this, and let me demonstrate it for you. So I'm pretty sure you've had some amazing opportunities to see children just really excel. But I just wanted to make sure we take a moment to really talk about this, continue to showcase your Microschool Academy for educators. And so let me pop that up there.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. It took a while to show up on my end. Yeah, so the Microschool Educator Academy is a small group of microschool educators, so either teachers, leaders, entrepreneurs. When I say education entrepreneurs, like this could also be the Spanish teacher that comes in to teach in a microschool setting, or the math teacher that we've hired to come in. So they may be a math tutor one-on-one, but they also come in and teach in the microschool setting. They've been hired to come in to teach in that setting. And so you may have your own education business, like tutoring business, language, PE, music class, whatever that is, and you're coming in to teach in a multi-age setting. Or for aspiring microschool founders who are saying, hey, I want to make sure I have all the information I need when I get ready to start my microschool. And so we do a small 2 to 3 day, depends on the session. The upcoming one that we have now is a 2-day, 3-hour class that we focus on what the microschool philosophy actually is, and embracing that and understanding that as different than the traditional classroom. We talk about how to manage a multi-age interactive classroom, right? We're not talking about classroom management where it's like sit down, no talking, and I'm going to give you this information, because microschools don't run that way. It's more student-centered and teacher guided. And so we want to make sure that we are understanding what that looks like and how interactive that classroom can be. We talk about how to plan for instruction with all these different grade levels, differentiation, what that looks like. We talk about using AI. That's a big piece of planning for differentiated instruction and how we can use that with fidelity. And measuring outcomes and assessments. What does it look like? What does your microschool require? How do you prepare students for assessments? Are they one-on-one assessments? Do they use a standardized assessment? Do they have other assessment platforms within their curriculum? You know, what questions to ask your microschool founder so that you can be ready and set for what teaching in a microschool actually looks like. And we have partnerships with 2 organizations, a local college and a local private school that does internships. And so those particular students who are interested in becoming teachers, although most colleges aren't ready to start sending student teachers to microschools as a choice. We're still pushing for it, but for reading practicum internships as students and high school internships, they can come and work within our microschool and get their internship, as well as learn about the microschool space. And so when those students are graduating from college, those education students, they now realize that microschools could be an option for them if they were inspired by what that work actually looks like. And so I'm really, really excited about that work. And I'm hoping that more microschools can be connected to their local colleges and their education programs, so that this type of work is happening within those local colleges as well, that we're not just dependent on like our Microschool Educator Academy for doing all the education around training teachers for the microschool space.
And that's great. I love how you're saying, well, we see the space where we need, we see amazing teachers, but they still need a little bit more training to be in this particular environment. And so you're saying, like, rather than just wait, as a pioneer in the environment, let me go ahead and create the welcoming space for for the microschool educators in this academy. And I'm pretty sure you've probably even had some who will one day take the step to become their own microschool founder. Mm-hmm. So this is an amazing opportunity. Tiffany, I'd like to thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. Is there I did want to talk about one more thing. I totally forgot. So Tiffany is a part of an amazing group, Black Microschools ATL Institute, and so they're here in Atlanta. I have had we're also a member of this group, and this is a group of extremely supportive women who come together in the space of just encouraging, sharing resources, and educating each other on the space. Sometimes it can be a vent, we can vent, it can be a vent fest, and then other times we're absolutely planning activities that will be super duper impactful for the community. I wanted to go ahead and share the website here. They can see this, right?
Yes.
Just trying to make sure. This space, and so this is Black Microschools ATL. If you are a school choice founder and you are serving and celebrating African American culture and African American, just our ingenuity, our innovation to start amazing places that are homeschool cooperative, hybrid schools, learning paths, microschools, tiny schools, private schools that are serving this community. Please, please, please join us. This group is led by April Jackson, and we appreciate so much that she does in this space. Hopefully we will have her shameless plug for her own interview. But we thank you so much for being here, Tiffany. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about in the community that you feel like is important right now?
I just want to say that all of this work that you see built around microschools comes from the genius and the joy of teaching from these edupreneurs. And so this work that we are doing, it's not easy, and it is laborious, but it comes from a passion. And that as you are considering just learning more about this space, that you have an open mind about it, that things aren't just always black and white, that sometimes we have to live in the gray for a moment while we continue to improve and support some of the other traditional spaces. And some of the myths that are out there about our schools, as far as like, are the kids really learning? How do we know that they would be ready for if they were to go back to public school? All of those things, all of those questions can be answered by just visiting a micro school in your area and learning more about it. Like, these are educated and really brilliant minds that are creating these spaces, and you can learn so much more about it if you just kind of tiptoe in there and have an open mind, actually see classrooms and kids learning. You'll just be amazed at the work that's being done. And many times people leave our school after visiting, like almost in tears, like, oh my goodness, like I saw kids happy and learning and using their voice, and we heard their voices more than we heard the teacher's voice as we walked through the classrooms, and all of those things, the inclusivity that you often see in these classrooms. It's really amazing. And so if you have questions, if you're wondering about it, just research, show up, get on a tour calendar, go see this school, support the school, share with others, because it takes a community. It takes a village. The same way it did with the Rosenwald schools, it's going to take the community supporting this option for families and for kids.
And so, Tiffany, how can they reach you if they wanted to talk more about microschools, your microschools, a community, Black Microschools ATL? Because I do know Black Microschool ATLs, they have an expo at least twice a year. And at this expo, they have workshops where they explain many of the things that they do. But how can they reach you via email if they would like to?
Yes, sure. You can go on our website, thefergusonschool.org, and just fill out an inquiry form on the contact page, and I will follow up with you and make sure that you get directed to wherever it is that you are looking for to move forward to.
And we have the website for the fergusonschool.org is right there on the screen for us. And so we would like to thank Tiffany. Thank Tiffany not just for being here, but thank her for her service to our community, because we know that this is not just about today. This is about societal change. This is about a shift. I always crack a joke and say, so many of us don't even realize these are just kingdom projects, and we won't see the full effect of it until the other side. We'll be like, oh, girl, I didn't know that baby, I affected them. But we are very excited to see what is next. Also for us here at the Flourishing Conversations, like I said, we are Flourishing Conversations who are put together and a part of the Georgia Black Home Educators Network. And we are the host of the Flourish Family Conference. And so the Flourish Family Conference is an annual conference every year that has over 300 attendees. And at this conference, we do a couple of things. We try to help homeschooling parents homeschool well and introduce new parents to homeschooling. We do this in a couple of ways. We equip parents as educators. We encourage social engagement in community. We energize an ecosystem of support, such as providers such as Tiffany. And last, we empower families to be school choice advocates. We believe that at our platform that we should prioritize the underserved and under-resourced family. This means fixed budget, culturally, racially, or ethnically diverse families, families with neurodiverse children, single parents, grandparents as guardians, and of course, parents who live in rural communities because it's hard to get certain resources. And so because we have all of these things that we are trying to make sure that we're doing, one of the things that we're doing here at the Flourish Family Homeschool Conference is that this year we are once again partnering with CompuDot. And CompuDot will be distributing laptops at the Flourish Homeschool Conference. Please register for this. I'm going to put it up. Please register for a laptop giveaway. Please know that you do not have to have a ticket to the Flourish Homeschooling Conference. You do not have to have a ticket to the Flourish Homeschool Conference to register for these laptop giveaways. This is a gift to our community that we, in partnership with CompuDoc, are giving out because technology equity is important. Many of you do not realize, but did you know that 80% of HBCUs do not have high-speed internet? Did you realize that many of our urban communities, they're not even a part of even being thought of for broadband to be put in their communities? And so that is a barrier that we want to make sure that we are a part of dismantling and making better for others. So with the QR code, please register for a laptop, but you can pick it up at the conference on that Thursday. And lastly, if you want to learn more about the things that we are doing here, especially with the Flourish Homeschooling Conference, please go to flourishhomeschoolevents.org. And this is where you can learn much more about the conference. Also, compudot.org/computer giveaway is where you can register for this free laptop. Please select Atlanta when you get there. And also from Atlanta, select Flourish Homeschool Conference as your distribution site. Okay, once again, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Flourishing Conversation. We will see you. We will see you another day. Keep having those flourishing conversations. Keep on being beautiful. See you later. Bye.